Hey everyone, welcome to the Vacationers Valley podcast, working in tandem with Vacationers Valley blog to help you travel smarter, not harder. As promised, I am back from Rome, so I am here recording a new podcast episode, so this is episode 2, and I actually got back from Rome on Monday night, but I spent all day yesterday pretty much just unpacking, unwinding, and actually figuring stuff out for my next trip, which I'll talk about later in the episode. But I did want to spend a good portion of this episode just going over how my first time solo traveling went, my second time in Rome, what I learned, what I liked, what I didn't like, and share a little bit of that with you before I get into really writing new blog posts. So some of the blog posts that I do have lined up are about like where I stayed, some of the tours that I did, places that I ate. So you'll get a foodies part 2 in Rome, which I know everybody wants to know more about places to eat. So that's going to be really fun to write. So yeah, this was my first time solo traveling, but second time in Rome. So I mentioned in the previous episode that I was picking Rome because I felt really comfortable going back to somewhere where I knew the area and I knew that I would feel really comfortable being by myself there, especially because I could understand a bit of the language, where if I went somewhere like Paris or Germany, I would be kind of lost. I was debating on going to London, but I just figured Rome would probably be the easiest for me. And I had a really good time going back there and being by myself. I didn't think I would necessarily like solo travel so much. When I got to the airport, I had a terrible flight there. I'll get into that in a second. But I didn't think I made the right choice. Like when I got to the hostel, none of my roommates were there, and I was just sitting on the bed by myself thinking like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? And who am I supposed to talk to? It seemed like the wrong choice. But by the end of the trip, like the day that I was supposed to leave, I wished I had another week. And I think the only way I would have figured out that I liked solo traveling is to just do what I did and say F it and go. Anyway, to get into a bit of what I did really like about solo travel that maybe I wasn't expecting, even though I didn't have anybody there to talk to the entire time and spend that time with like I did the last time I went to Italy, it was kind of nice because I wasn't worrying about anybody else. I wasn't trying to please anybody else. I didn't have to move at their pace. I moved at my own pace. So I wasn't in a rush anywhere. I took in all of the sights around me, and if I wanted to stop in a piazza and just sit and relax and people watch, I could, and I did, and absolutely loved it. I mean, I joked with the person that I went to Italy with before. I joked with him about how he was always in such a fast pace, and he was walking as if he was still on the East Coast, where I wanted to just take a nice little stroll and I wanted to enjoy my time. So I really did like that aspect, that I could do whatever I wanted at whatever pace I wanted. And in that same vein of me not trying to please anybody else, I didn't have to worry about what anyone else wanted to eat or when anyone else wanted to eat. I did my own thing. I went to restaurants that I wanted to go to and ate whatever the hell I wanted to eat. And I think some people are afraid of the idea of just sitting down and eating alone. But I would absolutely say don't be afraid to eat alone. You're not a weirdo. You're just enjoying your time by yourself, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And you have the freedom to eat wherever the hell you want, and that's actually something you should be thankful for. Of course, there were things when I was abroad that I didn't like, and part of that was the hostel. I never stayed at a hostel before, so this was my first time doing that. I figured it was just a cheaper way to stay abroad. But it was nothing wrong necessarily with the hostel itself. I mean, the staff there, they were nice. I didn't really have any personal issues with my roommates. I honestly barely saw them. I don't want to get too much into it in this podcast because I do want to have a dedicated post coming out about the hostel that I stayed at. What I will say I didn't like, just really quickly, when you're in Rome and it's still, like, it's not yet fall, so it's still kind of warm and it can get a little humid, especially in September because you have a higher chance of it raining. You value air conditioning, especially if you come from the United States. And I'm someone who, when I go to sleep, I need it to be really cool because I will sweat like crazy. I get really, really hot when I sleep. And I don't know if the air conditioning was just finicky. I don't know if my roommates were turning it off. I have no idea, but there were some nights I would get back to the hostel and I was so effing hot. Like, I couldn't even sleep with the sheets on me at all. So I really did not like that, and that's maybe just it was my room or my roommates, so I don't really want to hold the hostel totally responsible for that. But because of that, I was a little worried about being in a hostel in November when I go to Budapest. So I'm a little hesitant. The other thing I had an issue with that hostel was just like the shower situation. So I was in a room with 5 other females and we had one bathroom, and I don't know why it seems like every time I would get in after everybody else showered, the floor would be just like outrageously wet. Like, there was just water everywhere, and I didn't understand because I didn't have that problem. Like, I could get out of the shower without getting water everywhere. So, yeah, and again, that, like, I'm not holding the hostel responsible for that part, but it's just something, like, you have to be, I guess, aware of, and something that you'll only learn by traveling solo is that whole putting up with other people and how they do things, and just it's like being back in college when you have a roommate, just learning to deal with other people's I guess like living habits, so to speak, and it's nothing that I can hold the hostel accountable for, but it just is an experience that makes me a little hesitant for the next hostel. I do know that hostels are a way for people to travel in a really affordable way, so I am still going to keep giving it a shot if I'm traveling solo and just hope for the best. There was another thing that I didn't think I would like. As I was saying earlier, like, I had another person that I traveled with to Italy the first time I went, and when you're traveling with another person or a group of people, you are relying on them as companions, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, you always have someone to talk to and someone to rely on and someone to share those experiences with, but when you're traveling by yourself, obviously you don't have that. And I'm a little introverted. Like, I'm not a super introvert, but I'm also not the most outgoing. So I was very worried. And I think that's what, like, when I got to the hostel, why I was thinking I made some huge mistake, because I got there and didn't have anyone to talk to and didn't have anyone to share that experience with, of landing and getting to the place and unpacking and all of that. And it was also difficult because there's a 6-hour time difference. So if I was waking up in the morning, my friends would be going to sleep, or, I would be out doing something and they're at work. So it was really hard to keep in communication. So being alone can kind of force you to look for other people to share experiences with. So to try to make acquaintances and make friends. And I thought it was something I was really going to struggle with and really not like, but the next day, like the day after I arrived, I had a tour scheduled to go to Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius, and of course I'll have a post about that as well. But I ended up talking to, like, a lot of people on that tour, and, like, the tour guide was great too, because he really facilitated conversation between the whole group, and it was really nice. And after the tour at night, I actually went with a group of 3 retirees, because we were all going to go to the same restaurant, and I had dinner with them, and they treated me to dinner, which was really nice of them. And it's just not something that I ever thought I would have done. And when I did the Eat With event, or Eat With dinner with Barbara and Frederica at their house, which I'll, again, have a whole post about so that you understand a little more of what I'm talking about. But it's this dinner that you go online and you schedule and you pay for, and you go to Barbara's house and you have a full course, dinner, and you are with a bunch of people, and she sits you down at a table. Like, she picks where you sit, and you just eat and you talk and you get to know people. And I went to go get drinks with some of the people that were there after the dinner, so that was really cool. That was another way that I got to know people, and we exchanged, Instagram and everything. And then I also met a group of people around my age, so, like, from 23 to, like, 25-ish area. I hung out with them one night because there was, like, a free little music event in this one piazza in Trastevere, and I hung out with them that night. And then the next day, which was my last day, we went to the beach. So it was really cool, because if I had someone there with me, I probably wouldn't have done any of that, and I probably wouldn't have really talked to any of those people, because I would have been like, well, I have my, like, travel partner. I don't need anybody else. And I think that's a shame that I would have thought like that, because the people that I met were just great people all around. And that group of people that lived there that were my age, I'm still in contact with them now, and I know I'm going to continue to be. And when I was leaving, they were telling me, like, we hope to see you again soon, and they were really pushing for me to figure out a way to come back to Rome, and I absolutely love that. Which actually leads me to my next thing, is I'm planning to go back. So in November, I already had a flight scheduled to Budapest, and I had the arrival and departure already planned out. I used miles that I had. But then I started looking for flights from Budapest to Rome, and I was amazed that they were really cheap. And I was able to find a flight to Rome for only like $86. And then I was trying to see if I could find a flight back to the States for a cheap price, because I didn't want to go from Budapest to Rome and have, this really affordable time to then wind up having to pay like $1,000 to get back home. Like, that was just crazy to me. So I used Momondo, the app that helps you find really cheap flights, and I actually found a flight home with Norwegian Air for only like $325. And that to me is an absolute steal, because I'm used to looking at tickets from the United States to Italy round trip for like $1,500. So I immediately booked those, and I'm going to be gone like all of November, and I'm going to be spending my time in Italy with this new group of friends that I have. And who knows, maybe by the time I come home I'll be speaking, pretty decent Italian, so we'll have to see. But I can go into like a podcast, a later episode, about how I sort of like prepare for travel and how I try to find places I want to go and find flights and everything. And maybe that'll help you guys out. So if you want to hear more about like different apps that I use or different websites, I'll be more than happy to do that. So just let me know in some comments down below. And the other thing that I want to talk about is just generally my experience, as this being my first time solo traveling. And I think there's a lot of hesitation for people to start solo traveling. I know when I was thinking of going back to Rome and when I was thinking of going to Budapest, I didn't think I could do that alone. I told you a couple minutes ago, like, when I got to Rome, I felt like I made this huge mistake, and I think that's totally natural if you've never traveled somewhere by yourself, especially if you've never traveled abroad, and this is your first time going abroad by yourself. I think it is completely normal to be like, what the hell am I doing? What do I do now that I'm here? So my advice to someone who is really hesitant is to, first off, honestly just say, screw it, I'm going and I'm doing this. You have to just jump in. And I don't want to tell you to just go anywhere. You want to go somewhere where you know you're going to feel safe. So, like, if you speak Spanish, go to Spain or go to Mexico or, somewhere where that is the main language. And for me, part of it was because I understood at least a little Italian. So I know going to Italy, I wouldn't feel totally lost. And I also knew that most Italians speak English. So I knew I wasn't going to have a difficult time with language necessarily. The other thing I would suggest is, if you've traveled somewhere before, like let's say you've gone to Ireland or you've gone to Germany and you stayed a good chunk of time there, go back solo. Like, go back by yourself. That was part of the reason that I picked Rome, because I knew the area. I knew where I was going. I knew what I didn't see the first time that I wanted to see. I was able to map it all out before I went, and that made me feel so much better. There was never a time when I was walking through the streets of Rome that I didn't feel safe. And I actually felt like I was blending in very, very well, because after the first few times of just like walking around, like, it was my first time going to the cat sanctuary. It was my first time going to the Pantheon. My first time going over the Ponte Sisto to Trastevere. After walking through those streets just a few times, I was not using a map. I was not using my phone. I knew exactly where I was going. I looked confident in where I was going, which is key if you are solo traveling, which is why I'm telling you go somewhere that you've already been for your first time. Because people will leave you the hell alone if you look like you know where you are, if you look like a local. I actually had people coming up to me asking me for directions. That's how confident I was able to appear. And I was confident in where I was going, and I never felt like I was in any sort of danger. Like, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on solo travel and what to do when you're abroad and what to do to prepare. And that's also, again, something you can and probably should do. But a lot of those videos ended up saying, like, you know, don't go out at night by yourself, particularly if you are a female. Don't go out by yourself at night. And it's not that I wanted to be out by myself at night, but some of the things that I booked, like the dinner and the one tour that I had, ended really, really late. And I ended up having to go back to my hostel by myself very late at night. I mean, like, one night it was like 1 a.m, and I didn't get back to my hostel until like 2 a.m. But I never felt like I was in danger. I mean, you want to pick somewhere where you know is very safe, and Rome is actually very, very safe. And I'm not in any way telling you, like, oh, you know, go out late at night by yourself. It doesn't really matter. If you're in a touristy area, you're going to be safe. That's not the case. What I am telling you is to trust your gut. You have to trust your instincts. So if you already don't feel that safe by yourself, grab a taxi. Grab some form of public transportation to get you to A to B. Be on the phone with someone if you can. Like, I was sometimes texting people while I was walking around the streets. You want to pick somewhere where you are going to feel safe. Another piece of advice that I have is to pack light. Pack as light as possible. So, because I was only staying a week, I knew I didn't need that many clothes anyway. So that also plays into it, how long you are staying, if you're going to be able to have a laundry where you're staying, or if you could wash the clothes in like a sink. Like in my one post where I talk about packing, I said that I brought like little detergent packets because I knew I was going to end up washing clothes in the sink. So you want to pack as light as possible. I ended up like packing weeks ahead of time, which I actually think was a mistake because I was packing and unpacking and packing and unpacking, trying to make sure that I wasn't taking too much, trying to make sure that I had everything I needed, and I still forgot stuff. So I think if you just pack a few days before you go, you're less likely to forget things. Like, I somehow forgot, like, moisturizer, I forgot my tweezers, I forgot headphones, and I was like, how the hell did I do that when I packed so ahead of time? And that's why, because I packed so ahead of time. But you want to pack light because you're the only one that's going to be lugging all of your bags around. You're not going to have someone there to help you get from point A to point B. You are completely on your own. So you don't want to be carrying like a 40-pound suitcase down cobblestone streets. It's not fun. So I took one carry-on, and then I had a big purse that I put like a couple other little things in that I wanted to have on the plane. I actually had like a purse within a purse because I use a crossbody when I'm walking around. So I had like a big tote purse and then put the crossbody in that. So you just want to try to pack efficiently and very light. And I brought things that I didn't even use. Like, I had my planner that I ended up really not needing. I had a book that I really didn't read. I read like a couple pages on the plane. So you just need to think, like, what do I really, really absolutely need, and what can I just kind of ditch and leave at home? The other reason that I only had a carry-on was because I had so many connecting flights. And if you're traveling on a budget, sometimes connecting flights are a way to get a flight for much cheaper. I know. It can be so tempting to just cut back a couple $100 and take those extra flights. You have to think if that's for you. And I think after this solo travel experience, after being on 3 flights just to get from the United States to Rome, I will not take more than 1 stop. Ever. Anymore. I had 3 flights. I had to go from Jersey to Chicago to North Carolina to Rome. And the flight from North Carolina to Rome was like the flight from hell. Then I had a flight coming home from Rome to North Carolina to Jersey. That one wasn't as bad, but God, I will never, ever do as many stops as I did for that first flight to Rome ever again. Never take for granted a non-stop flight. But I'll go more into how to find really good and affordable flights for those of you who might be traveling on a budget in a later podcast or in a blog post. I'm not sure which. You can let me know which way you would prefer that information in the comments. The other perk to traveling solo, if you are on a budget, is that you will essentially be able to save money just because you're not paying for other people. Like when I went before, I had tours that I was paying for 2 of us. So you won't have that. And then you can also, since you're only worrying about yourself, you might be saving money because you're not booking tours that another person wants to do. Like you're not adhering to someone else's needs or schedule, so you don't have to spend as much money doing things they want to do. Anyway, what did I learn from this solo travel experience? I learned that getting around, like going from point A to point B to point C, using public transportation, figuring out where you are, really isn't that hard. Like, that was probably one of my biggest fears, even when I was traveling with someone else, was just like, I'm not going to know where I'm going. I'm going to get totally lost. And even when I'm at home, I have this extreme fear of, like, driving, where I'm going to get on the highway and take the wrong exit and be completely lost, and I have this like extreme anxiety. But I think what this taught me is just that going abroad and figuring out how to get from one place to another and how to use the public transportation is really not difficult if you're willing to just take the time to relax and read and ask people questions and just explore. It's really not difficult, and you shouldn't be afraid of trying to get a sense of direction. Solo travel definitely made me feel much more independent and much more capable. Like, I feel much more confident now after having done Rome by myself to now go to Budapest by myself. Like, I am so much more confident in that I will be able to get around. I know how to take care of myself. I know to trust my gut. I know more of like how to pack, what to pack, and it doesn't scare me as much as it did that first time. If there's anyone out there that is really worried about traveling by themselves or has been thinking about it and just doesn't know if it's for them, because I was thinking about it and I didn't know if it was for me, but I knew I wanted to do this travel thing, and I knew that I wanted to turn it into something where I was helping other people. So all I can say to you is that if you are worried, if you're hesitant, just do it. Seriously. Just book the flight and go. Sometimes you might be thinking that, well, I'll just wait until someone can go with me. Don't wait. Don't wait for anybody. Because I had that same idea where I was like, well, no one can go with me, so maybe I shouldn't book this. And then something in my head just said, no, you need to go and do this and be on your own. And it was the best decision ever. I mean, now I'm going back to Rome because I met new people that I want to be friends with and that I want in my life. And that's so special. That's such a great thing to be able to go and meet new people and make friends in other countries. It really is just an amazing experience. And you might not get that if you travel with someone else. I know this podcast has been a little bit of like a rambling and maybe not really structured, but I wanted to get something up and on the blog and up on YouTube in the meantime while I'm writing other posts. So what I want to just kind of leave you with is telling you what posts are going to be coming up, what you can look forward to, and what I'm thinking about for the next podcast episode. So on the blog, I think what my first post is going to be is probably about the hostel itself and, you know, where it is, my experience, if I recommend it. So it was at the New Generation Hostel, and I'll talk a bit about that. And then I'll have a blog post about using the metro to get from the airport to Center City, Rome, because that's one thing I did that was completely new to me, that was actually extremely easy. And I don't want anyone to be spending more money taking a taxi or booking a private airport shuttle when you can easily, I mean so easily, use the metro for really, really cheap to get to Center City, Rome. Another post that I mentioned earlier in this podcast was the foodies post, so I'll be having a part 2 about places to eat in Rome. I'll also have a post about the tours that I took while I was there. So I have 2 with city wonders. One was the Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius, and the other one was the Dark Heart of Rome. The other tour that I took was a food tour. That one was really interesting, so I'll definitely post about that. It wasn't really what I expected it to be. I did do another little tour in the Basilica Mary Maggiore, which was really close to the hostel. I just walked in and they were doing like a little tour for $5, so I booked it. So I'll talk about that, because for $5, I mean, like, why not? I want to do a post maybe about some of, I also mentioned that there was that Eat With event that I went to for dinner that I'll definitely be posting about, because it was such an amazing experience. Like, it's on the more expensive side, but it is so worth it. And then the other thing that I want to write about definitely is getting from Rome to a beach. So we went to Sperlonga, which that was when I met that group of people who were around my age. We went and we had like a little beach day, which was really, really nice. And the beaches there are awesome. So I definitely want to tell you how to get from Center City, Rome to probably one of the better beaches on the coast, like near Rome. And it's actually super affordable using the train. I might also do a post about a little tattoo studio that I found, because I did get a permanent souvenir from Italy. I did get a tattoo while I was there, so I want to shout out that tattoo studio in a post and recommend it to some of you if you ever want to get tatted abroad. And I think that is it as far as I know for future blog posts that are going to be coming up later this week and next week. For future podcasts, I am definitely thinking about, as I said, doing like a how I prepare for travel, like what apps and websites that I use. If you want any other specific podcasts, like topics or questions you want me to answer, please let me know in the comments, because I'll definitely be looking for more topics to talk about as I start to develop this podcast. If you aren't following me on social media, I will have everything, of course, linked down below, and all of the social media accounts for Vacationers Valley. On the Instagram, while I was abroad, I was posting pictures of what I was doing, and I still have more pictures to post. So if you want some nice little photos of Rome, definitely follow the Instagram for Vacationers Valley. And then I was also posting little things on Twitter. I'll be, of course, on Twitter more now that I'm home, and updating you guys on what blog posts are going up, or what videos or podcasts or whatever are being uploaded. So definitely follow on all the social media. And of course, follow the blog. I do have the email that you can sign up for, that it'll just send like monthly updates on some of the new posts. And then I will also, as the list for email subscriptions grows, I will be sending out other little extra things. So some recipes, some tips, other articles, exclusive photos, just for people who are subscribed to the email list. So when you get onto Vacationers Valley, the blog, a little box should pop up that asks you to subscribe to the email list. So please join. I would love for you to be a part of the community on Vacationers Valley. Anyway, to close this out, I just want to say thank you so much if you've made it this far into the video or podcast. Whether you have this up on YouTube or if you're just listening to it up on the blog, whatever it may be. Thank you so much for sticking around to this point. If you follow me on any social media, or if you do follow the blog, an extra special thank you for supporting me in any way. I do want this to become a really big and great and helpful community, so thanks for joining me, and I do look forward to hearing from you. So keep an eye out for future blog posts, future videos, pictures, whatever it may be, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day, guys, wherever you are in the world.